Fortnite, 2011. Before Fortnite took over the planet with dances, streamers, and chaotic lobbies, it was supposed to be something completely different. Back in 2011, Fortnite was announced as a co-op survival crafting game. You'd spend your days scavenging for materials, building forts, and fighting off waves of monsters at night, kind of like Minecraft. The main mode was called Save the World, and that was meant to be Fortnite. Epic Games spent years on it, showing it off at conventions, even calling it the future of survival gaming. But by 2017, the world had changed. PUBG was exploding. Battle Royales were the next big thing, and Epic made a wild decision to turn their base-building zombie game into a massive 100-player fight to the death. In just 2 months, they slapped together the Battle Royale mode as a fun experiment, and then it blew up. Within weeks, it was bigger than PUBG, bigger than anything they'd ever made. And here's the twist. The original Save the World mode still exists, but almost nobody plays it. It's like Fortnite's forgotten twin, the game that could have been. So technically, the Fortnite everyone knows today only exists because of one risky, last-minute decision and a little bit of luck. Cave game. It's kind of funny to think about, but Minecraft, one of the most original games ever, actually started as a copy. Back in 2009, Marcus Persson, better known as Notch, was obsessed with a small indie game called Infiniminer. It was a blocky sandbox where players mined for resources, built stuff, and explored underground. Notch loved the concept so much that he made his own version over a weekend and called it Cave Game. That version of Minecraft didn't have survival, crafting, mobs, or even health. You just dug tunnels in silence, surrounded by gray stone. No music, no purpose, just endless blocks. But players loved it, and with every update, it evolved. Crafting, zombies, skeletons, even the day-night cycle. What started as a simple clone slowly turned into its own universe. Within a year, it had exploded online. Today, it's easy to forget how small it started. But Minecraft didn't just copy something and stop there. It took a rough idea, polished it, and turned it into the best-selling game in history. Not bad for a ripoff, huh? Zelda Beta. Before Ocarina of Time became one of the most iconic games ever made, it was almost an entirely different Zelda. Back in 1997, Nintendo was still experimenting with the jump to 3D, and early builds of Ocarina of Time looked weird. Link's model was rough, enemies were unfinished, and the world felt eerie, empty, like a dream that didn't make sense. Fans later called it the Ocarina Beta, or Zelda 64 prototype. There were entire dungeons and characters that never made it in. One was called the Unicorn Fountain, supposedly connected to the Triforce itself. Another showed Link exploring strange, glowing temples that vanished before release. Some of those ideas were eventually recycled into Majora's Mask, but most were deleted forever. What really keeps fans talking, though, is the atmosphere. The early versions of Ocarina of Time had this dark, almost haunted tone. Strange lighting, empty fields, and broken NPCs that just stood there. It's unsettling, but fascinating. To this day, beta hunters still search through development cartridges, trying to find clues of what was lost. And sometimes, they do. Unfinished maps, ghost-like characters, even test areas that feel like a cursed version of Hyrule. It's the Zelda game we were never supposed to play, and maybe that's for the best. Resident Evil 3.5. Before Resident Evil 4 became the legendary action horror game we know, it actually went through 4 completely different versions. The first version, back in 2001, didn't even look like Resident Evil. It was a ghost story. In that early build, Leon S. Kennedy was infected with a mysterious virus that gave him hallucinations and strange powers. The game featured floating suits of armor, creepy dolls that came to life, and haunted environments, more like Silent Hill than Resident Evil. Developers at Capcom even gave this version a codename, Resident Evil 3.5. The tone was gothic and supernatural, and it looked incredible for its time. But there was one huge problem. It wasn't scary in the right way. It was weird, confusing, and nothing like the grounded biohorror fans loved. So, Capcom scrapped the entire thing. Literally years of work gone. But that ghostly prototype didn't vanish completely. Its combat and movement system later evolved into an entirely new game, Devil May Cry. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 technically gave birth to another franchise before being reborn itself. And when it finally launched in 2005, it reinvented action games forever. Not bad for a game that started with haunted dolls, huh? Half-Life prototype. Before Half-Life changed gaming forever, Valve actually made a version so bad, they nearly canceled it. The original 1997 prototype looked more like a Doom clone than the sci-fi masterpiece we know. It was loud, fast, and totally directionless. You played as a soldier mowing down aliens. No Gordon Freeman, no story, just chaos. It was called Quiver, and when Valve showed it to playtesters, everyone hated it. They said it was boring, confusing, and had zero atmosphere. So instead of giving up, Valve did something unheard of. They scrapped 80% of the game and started again from scratch. That's when they created Gordon Freeman, Black Mesa, and the silent, immersive storytelling that made Half-Life legendary. But traces of that failed version still exist. Early footage shows bizarre levels, creepy enemy behavior, and strange lighting that makes it feel like a completely different game. Almost like an alternate timeline where Half-Life never became famous. It's kind of poetic. The game that defined storytelling in shooters only existed because Valve's first try was a total disaster. OG Five Nights at Freddy's. Before Five Nights at Freddy's took over the internet and traumatized an entire generation, it actually started as a cute Christian kids game. Yeah, really. Back in the early 1920s, Scott Cawthon made a family-friendly adventure called Chipper and Sons Lumber Company. It had cheerful music, talking animals, and a wholesome storyline. But when players reviewed it, they didn't talk about the gameplay. They talked about how the characters looked like horrifying animatronics from a cursed Chuck E. Cheese. Basically, people said the game was unintentionally terrifying, which isn't exactly what you want to hear about your kid's title. Instead of getting discouraged, Scott did something genius. He leaned into the criticism. If people thought his characters were creepy, then fine. He'd make something actually scary. He redesigned the animal characters into metallic, broken animatronics. He removed combat, slowed everything down, and built the entire game around watching cameras, hearing footsteps, and trying not to die in the world's worst night shift job. And that tiny idea exploded into Five Nights at Freddy's, one of the biggest indie horror series ever made. Final Fantasy vs. XIII. Before Final Fantasy XV became the road trip RPG we know today, it started as something completely different, Final Fantasy vs. XIII. Back in 2006, Vs. XIII was pitched as a dark, cinematic action game, directed by Tetsuya Nomura, the guy behind Kingdom Hearts. The tone was way more gothic, ruined cities, political conspiracies, blood, and a story that was much more tragic. No camping, no friendly banter, no road trips. Just Noctis brooding his way through a dangerous world. The combat was also different. It had a fast, flashy Kingdom Hearts-style feel, with aerial combos and party members switching in real time. Even characters like Stella, Noctis' original love interest, played major roles that were later removed entirely. But the project stalled. Hardware changes, staff changes, and story rights turned it into a decade-long development nightmare. Eventually, Square Enix rebooted it as Final Fantasy XV in 2012, with a lighter story, new characters, and a road trip vibe. The original dark fantasy vision may be gone, but fans still dream about the lost world of Vs. XIII, the game that almost never became Final Fantasy XV at all. Doom 4. Before the fast-paced demon-slaying Doom reboot of 2016, the game looked completely different. Early in development, Doom 4 was being designed as a cinematic military shooter, not the classic action-heavy shooter we know today. Players would take on the role of a soldier, battling demons in scripted missions, with cover-based combat and a serious, realistic tone. It was slow, tactical, and felt like it could have been another generic shooter in the vein of Call of Duty. Fans and insiders weren't impressed. The project lacked the frantic energy, gore, and speed that made Doom legendary. So, after years of work, id Software scrapped most of it and started over. The result? The 2016 Doom reboot, a return to fast, brutal, and adrenaline-pumping demon carnage. Interestingly, some assets and ideas from the old military shooter version were quietly reused, but the core experience was gone. Instead, we got a game that felt like true Doom, violent, unrelenting, and impossible to put down. One wrong turn, and we might have had a slow, tactical shooter instead of the masterpiece of speed, chaos, and demons we love today. If you guys enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and comment down below which game is your favorite. Thanks for watching.